You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Hey everybody, Dave here. Have you ever wondered where your personal information is lurking online? Like many of you, I was concerned about my data being sold by data brokers. So I decided to try Delete Me. I have to say, Delete Me is a game changer. Within days of signing up, they started removing my personal information from hundreds of data brokers. I finally have peace of mind knowing my data privacy is protected. Delete Me's team does all the work for you with detailed reports, so you know exactly what's been done. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and enter code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K. Apple releases emergency security updates to patch a zero-day vulnerability. CISA places election security workers on leave. Elon Musk leads a group of investors making an unsolicited bid to require OpenAI. The man accused of hacking the SEC's ex-Twitter account pleads guilty. Law enforcement seizes the leak site of the 8-base ransomware gang. Researchers track a massive increase in brute force attacks targeting edge devices. Experts question the UK government's demand for an encryption backdoor on Apple's devices. Today's guest is John Fuer, head of threat intelligence at Trellix, joining us to discuss their work blurring the lines, how nation-states and organized cybercriminals are becoming alike. And it's International Day for Women and Girls in Science. It's Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It's great to have you with us. Apple has released emergency security updates to patch a zero-day vulnerability that was exploited in highly sophisticated targeted attacks. The flaw, reported by Citizen Labs' Bill Marczak, affects USB restricted mode, a security feature designed to block unauthorized data extraction from locked iPhones and iPads. Attackers could bypass this protection through a physical exploit, potentially using forensic tools like Gray Key or Cellebrite. Apple addressed the issue with improved state management. The vulnerability affects various iPhone and iPad models, including iPhone XS and later. Though the attack was limited to specific targets, users are urged to update immediately. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has placed 17 staffers on administrative leave, raising concerns about election security support. These employees, including 10 regional election security specialists, provided cybersecurity and physical security training to state and local election officials. The internal review reportedly examines efforts to counter foreign interference and misinformation. Both Republican and Democratic election officials have defended CISA's work, highlighting its crucial role in securing elections. The move comes amid political pressure, with Trump administration figures criticizing CISA's past efforts to counter misinformation. The agency remains without a permanent director, and its leadership was absent from recent election security meetings. Despite the suspensions, CISA has assured states that cybersecurity and physical security services will continue to be available. Elon Musk and a group of investors have made a $97.4 billion unsolicited bid to acquire OpenAI, escalating Musk's ongoing feud with CEO Sam Altman. Altman dismissed the offer on Twitter, jokingly offering to buy Twitter for $9.74 billion, to which Musk responded, "Swindler." Musk's consortium, which includes Baron Capital and Valor Management, seeks to restore OpenAI's original open-source mission. Musk argues that OpenAI has strayed from its founding principles, while his own XAI follows the values he was promised. The bid complicates Altman's efforts to take OpenAI private, as the for-profit arm must fairly value the nonprofit's assets. Musk also urged California's Attorney General to open competitive bidding. Musk co-founded OpenAI in 2015 but left in 2018. His ongoing legal battles against OpenAI focus on its shift toward profit-driven AI. In other OpenAI news, a hacker named Immerking claimed on breach forums to be selling 20 million OpenAI credentials, but experts believe the data originates from InfoStealer malware, not an OpenAI breach. OpenAI says they investigated and found no evidence of a compromise. Threat intelligence firm Keela analyzed the data and confirmed it matches InfoStealer logs, likely collected from malware like Redline, Rise Pro, and Vidar. The hacker's post was later deleted, reinforcing suspicions that the claim was exaggerated. Breach Forums is known for hosting misleading data breach claims. Eric Council Jr., age 25, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit identity theft and fraud after hacking the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's Twitter account in January of last year. His actions caused wild swings in Bitcoin's price by falsely announcing SEC approval of crypto-based ETFs. He faces a maximum sentence of 5 years, with sentencing set for May 16th. Mr. Council used SIM swapping techniques to take over the SEC account, posing as an FBI employee to obtain a victim's phone number. He then used it to reset security codes and hijack the SEC Gov account. Prosecutors say he was paid in Bitcoin for the hack, which aimed to manipulate the crypto market. Law enforcement agencies seized the leak site of the 8-base ransomware gang, replacing it with a takedown notice. The action coincided with the arrest of 4 suspects in Thailand, accused of stealing $16 million from over 1,000 victims worldwide. Authorities from Switzerland and the U.S. had issued warrants for the suspects, 2 men and 2 women, who now face wire fraud and conspiracy charges. Europol, the FBI, and other agencies supported the operation, named Phobos Ator. 8base emerged in 2023, targeting manufacturing firms and entities like the United Nations Development Program. It has ties to Ransom House and Phobos ransomware. The takedown follows similar law enforcement crackdowns on ransomware groups like Lockbit and Black Cat, contributing to a 35% drop in ransom payments in 2024. Security researchers have observed a massive increase in brute force attacks targeting edge devices, often launched from malware-infected routers and firewalls. The Shadow Server Foundation reports that 2.8 million unique IP addresses daily have been used in these attacks, with the highest concentrations coming from Brazil, Turkey, Russia, and Argentina. The attacks primarily target devices from Palo Alto Networks, Ivanti, and SonicWall, with over 100,000 MikroTik devices implicated. The cause of these infections remains unclear, though some speculate malware may be bundled with popular software in Brazil. Hackers, including state-sponsored groups like China's Salt Typhoon, often exploit unpatched vulnerabilities in edge devices. The surge highlights ongoing cybersecurity risks for firewalls, VPN gateways, and email security appliances, which remain prime targets for cyber attacks. A Wall Street Journal editorial from Johns Hopkins cryptographer Matthew Green and Sentinel-1 CISO Alex Stamos warns that the UK government's demand for an encryption backdoor in Apple's devices poses a grave risk to global security. The order would allow British authorities to access any iPhone user's private data worldwide, setting a dangerous precedent that could weaken security for billions. The editorial argues that Congress must act immediately to prohibit U.S. tech companies from complying with such demands, creating a legal conflict that Apple could fight in UK courts. The authors highlight the growing cyber threats from Russia and China, pointing to recent hacks targeting U.S. telecoms, the Treasury, and political figures. Even the FBI now supports encryption to protect Americans from cyber threats. If Britain succeeds, China and other nations will surely follow, undermining security for all. The editorial urges lawmakers to ensure strong encryption remains unbreakable by any foreign government, safeguarding American privacy and national security. Coming up after the break, my conversation with John Fuer from Trellix. We're discussing their work blurring the lines, how nation-states and organized cybercriminals are becoming alike, and celebrating International Day for Women and Girls in Science. Stay with us. Cyber threats are evolving every second, and staying ahead is more than just a challenge, it's a necessity. That's why we're thrilled to partner with ThreatLocker, the cybersecurity solution trusted by businesses worldwide. ThreatLocker is a full suite of solutions designed to give you total control, stopping unauthorized applications, securing sensitive data, and ensuring your organization runs smoothly and securely. Visit threatlocker.com today to see how a default deny approach can keep your company safe and compliant. Do you know the status of your compliance controls right now? Like, right now. We know that real-time visibility is critical for security, but when it comes to our GRC programs, we rely on point-in-time checks. But get this. More than 8,000 companies like Atlassian and Quora have continuous visibility into their controls with Vanta. Here's the gist. Vanta brings automation to evidence collection across 30 frameworks, like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. They also centralize key workflows like policies, access reviews, and reporting, and helps you get security questionnaires done 5 times faster with AI. Now that's a new way to GRC. Get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/cyber. That's vanta.com/cyber for $1,000 off. John Fuer is head of threat intelligence at Trellix. I recently sat down with him to discuss their work blurring the lines, how nation-states and organized cybercriminals are becoming alike.
For years now, we've seen a convergence, and there's if you look at our customer base from governments, financial institutions, all across the board, there used to be a lot of like, but we're not at risk of an APT like a nation state, or we're more inclined to cyber criminal and all these things. And what we've been seeing in the course of several years now is that it's becoming such a gray area. Even for our customers, you cannot say like, well, we're more at risk of an APT versus a cyber criminal, because they're working together, working as proxies. So we, our researcher Tomer in the team, who was very, very talented, he took it upon himself to lay this down and explain it, that it's the time of attribution that you had in the past that could be very easily done is becoming harder and harder. And it might actually be that you're attacked by a cyber criminal, but the ulterior motive is that it's state directed, or it actually is a state actor going after your financials. So it's not as easy as it, or as clear as it looks, it used to look.
Can we dig into some of the details here? I mean, what are some of the ways that we're seeing a lot of this crossover? Can you share some specifics?
Oh, totally. Like things that we've seen very much being adopted on both sides is living off the land. We notice that, and that makes attribution harder, right? You're using the tools that are either non-malicious or they're actually present on the victim system or they're in the network. So you kind of go under the radar, but it also makes it harder for a lot of your security tools to distinguish, because it's not necessarily you using a malicious binary. You're just using something which was designed for good, but with bad intent. And we see that being used by as well as cyber criminals, as well as APT actors. So on the cyber criminal side, a lot of the ransomware gangs using a lot of the living off the land just because they don't want to be detected. And it's very useful. You don't have to smuggle anything in, and you can exfiltrate data out, or you can just elevate, or you can work your way through the network. At the same time, if we look at a group, let's say Full Typhoon, is very, very competent in using living off the land as well to get to their objective. They often attack like edge routers, but then they move through the network laterally, and they use a lot of living off the land. And this is just the tools. Obviously, I have a background in law enforcement before I joined the private sector. And it's funny, I'm from the Netherlands, and we have a very, I would like to say, a competent cybercrime teams. They work a lot with the FBI, and the Netherlands is known for bad hosting. And I can recall many times I had to go to a hosting provider, which was considered then a bulletproof hoster, and they would comply eventually. But it could have been of a request of an intelligence agency that there is actually a system being used by a state-sponsored actor, or it was a system that was a C2 server for a cyber criminal team. So for me, that says like, hey, they're using the same infrastructure because it was the same hosting provider. It was so we're coming to the same area, the same registration, but it was just a different group. So they're using infrastructure as well.
Well, despite this convergence here, are there still differences that are apparent, or are there different skill levels? What are some of the things that, when you're looking at the techniques here that differentiate between the two to this day?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, if I say skill level, if we take the Lolbin stuff, I think if you compare, let's say, a ransomware group with an APT group, and the APT group is not aimed to disrupt, but they're doing classic espionage, we would see that they stay low and slow, and they take their time, whereas the ransomware teams are up against the clock. So they are allowing themselves to make a little bit more noise in order to get to their objective, because their goal is essentially different. What we also see is a lot of the more refined exploit discovery, development, so vulnerability discovery and then exploit development is usually done by the nation state groups, the state sponsor groups. They're far more skilled at that. And they like the Midnight Blizzard, how they've been using these cloud-based attacks. That's something that is we have yet to see at that scale and sophistication by cyber criminal actors. And we almost cannot talk any podcast without mentioning AI. So we see on both sides of the spectrum, they're adopting to AI, whereas I can see that cyber criminals are adopting it for code base and solving problems they have and speeding up their operation. However, well, you know just as well as I do that cyber criminal activity is it's not operating in a vacuum. They're always dependent on key services that are like in the kill chain left or right of them, whereas APT actors have a lot of that stuff in-house. So you would see more refined usage of AI in their attacks by state actors versus cyber criminals.
You know, John, I've seen folks, when they're looking at this blurring of lines, say that attribution doesn't really matter anymore. Do you go along with that statement, or is there still value there?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. Like, I would yet have to see a CEO that is not interested in like, okay, who stole my wallet type of analogy. But at the same time, the people that we interact with and that use like our software and they use our solutions and the actual people in the trenches, very often, yeah, attribution can help speed things up, but it is the outcome of the process you go through. That's the way I see it. So it's an important factor, but when you get breached or you're dealing with an incident, it's not always the most pressing at hand, because you have to kick off threat hunting. You have to find patient zero. You're going in a full IR cycle. And by doing so, and you're using threat intelligence, and you might have hypotheses forming, and I think that's a very healthy thing to do for every security practitioner, to say like, okay, what kind of adversary are we dealing with, and what can we expect from such an adversary, of other tools that they might use, or their intent. And then you could base your hunting off of that. I think that's very helpful. But while you're doing this, you kind of fill in the blanks, and eventually the outcome of your full investigation would probably lead to an attribution of an actor of such kind. And yeah, with ransomware, it's very obvious. If you wait long enough, they'll make themselves known, and you get as our friends at Google say, a third-party notification from the threat actor. In their State of the Union talk, I love that statement, by the way. And yeah, they make themselves known, and you know who you're dealing with.
Well, given this reality of this blending, this blurring, as you all describe it, what are your recommendations then for folks who are tasked with defending their organizations, given that this is the reality? Yeah,
that's some good advice I would give is like, and you can use this, you can do this in multiple ways, but it is to do a threat modeling exercise. Yes, you need to study the threat actors that are prevalent in your sector. That's healthy. You need to do that, but don't have that bias that you only think like, okay, no, we're only dealing with APT and no ransomware. Because let's be honest, if you have a vulnerability somewhere and somebody can get in, you don't know who's in until they're in, and then they can wreak havoc. And that could be a cyber criminal actor. It could be even a hacker. But looking at the threat landscape, looking at all the different threats that might attack you, and then overlaying those TTPs, looking at, okay, what are the commonalities? What are some of the overlap points that they all have to do? They all have to escalate privileges. They all have to maybe use certain credentials. They all have to do X, Y, or Z. And when you identify those points, you can actually look at your security controls and see, okay, are we protected against this? Or are there controls missing? Or can we adjust our current controls to have coverage? Or if we're blind, is there anything we can do with threat hunting? So can we kick off some proactive threat hunting in our environment just to get better eyes on, to study, to see, and maybe there's evidence of a breach. So there's all these things we would say like, okay, study all. And nowadays, luckily, that's a lot easier than it is to do than it was a couple of years back. So even with some AI, you can create some pretty elaborate stuff, and you can drill down and see how your security posture is scaling up towards a multitude on actors. But every actor, initial access or whatever, they'll move on your network. So I always say, or often say, like your chance to detect them is really on that period when they first enter to their final objective. And that doesn't matter if it's a ransomware actor or an APT actor. They have to move through your network. So knowing your network and knowing what the anomalies are, that's key.
That's John Fuer, head of threat intelligence at Trellix. We'll have a link to their publication in our show notes. And now, a message from our sponsor, Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Enterprises have spent billions of dollars on firewalls and VPNs, yet breaches continue to rise by an 18% year-over-year increase in ransomware attacks and a $75 million record payout in 2024. These traditional security tools expand your attack surface with public-facing IPs that are exploited by bad actors more easily than ever with AI tools. It's time to rethink your security. Zscaler Zero Trust plus AI stops attackers by hiding your attack surface, making apps and IPs invisible, eliminating lateral movement, connecting users only to specific apps, not the entire network, continuously verifying every request based on identity and context, simplifying security management with AI-powered automation, and detecting threats using AI to analyze over 500 billion daily transactions. Hackers can't attack what they can't see. Protect your organization with Zscaler Zero Trust and AI. Learn more at zscaler.com/security.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
And finally, it is the United Nations International Day for Women and Girls in Science. It's a day worth celebrating, and here's N2K's Maria Vermazis with more.
Today, February 11th, is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. This one's personal. I grew up in a house where science and engineering were revered and encouraged at every turn. My peer group in high school were other science-minded girls like me. There's a photo in my high school yearbook of our computer club that always makes me chuckle because there I am off to the side, the only girl. It's a dynamic that you get used to. Even at engineering school and college, not unlike high school, it wasn't unusual to be the only young woman in a lab or maybe one of a handful in a large seminar. It was easy for us to remember each other. Us engineering school women would often become friends, toiling away at problem sets in study rooms for hours every day, sharing notes, helping each other prep for exams, rotating who would go to office hours. And it's funny, outside of engineering, many of us probably wouldn't have been friends. We really didn't have all that much in common interest-wise, but we knew what we were all up against, so we banded together for survival. I'll skip to the chase. We were the class of 2005, so it's been 20 years. Many of the women I knew from those days went into their chosen fields after graduating. But now, these decades on, of the dozens of women that I knew starting their careers in science and engineering, maybe 4 are still working in them. Now, career changes happen for all sorts of reasons, like in my case, where it simply is just not the right field for you. It happens. But sometimes it's the result of a slow fade, where over the years you have to keep fighting an invisible war, and sometimes you just simply get tired of it. Whatever you want to call it, a retention problem, a cultural problem, it goes way beyond any federal mandate or national border. And there are conversations happening, said and unsaid, especially right now, about whose stories are celebrated, whose competence and credibility is celebrated, who rises in the ranks with like-minded peers, whose accomplishments are worth a damn, who is a merited hire. In other words, in science and engineering, who belongs? Well, women do. This is only the 10th anniversary of International Girls and Women in Science Day. So all you trailblazers toiling long hours over problem sets, labs, trials, reams and reams of data, connecting with that spark of joy that ignited that love of science, ladies, I see you. Our world needs your perspective and your expertise more than ever. Keep fighting, out of spite for the haters, if nothing else. And please remember, even if you are the only one in the room, you belong.
That's N2K's Maria Vermazis, host of the N2K T- Daily Space Podcast. We'll have a link with more information about the International Day of Women and Girls in Science celebration. You can find that in our show notes. And that's the CyberWire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our CyberWire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpe is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hey everyone, grab your favorite mug and put the kettle back on the stove, because Afternoon Cyber Tea is coming back. This season, I am joined by an all-star team of thought leaders and industry experts to dive into the critical trends that are shaping the future of cybersecurity. We will explore how these technologies are revolutionizing the way we work, the way we live, and the way we interact with the world around us. And as always, we will be bringing you thought-provoking discussions and fresh perspectives on what is driving the future of cybersecurity and what leaders can do now to protect their teams tomorrow. New episodes will be coming to you in February, every other Tuesday, so subscribe now wherever you get your favorite podcasts.